we can expect.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
All right, 5:30, we're gonna move on to the workshop session of this program. I'm gonna turn it over to Gail and Jerry at this point for information to bring us up to speed, remind us of what we did, when, where, how, and so on.
So I'll kick it off. So, in our last meeting, we're not sure where we're at with the building things, and we haven't updated ourselves as far as where the building designs are at, and money-wise. So, back when we were working on this with Mike Major, he did put together a breakdown of the costs of different parts of the building. And just for reference, anyway. These are the plans that they come up with that we had shown last year at our district meeting. So here, if anybody has questions about what's here and why.
I just have a question. Does that drawing reflect the new foyer?
That's good.
Yes, it was included in there.
Do you want me to go over that, Jerry, quickly?
Sure, yeah, so,
I can't see that part from.
Okay, so.
here we go.
I'm back running.
There, better. Let me orient myself here. So, here's the front office area. And you can see here that he proposed to build a wall with a secondary door to make a vestibule here. It involves changing this window and having an opening, kind of like you have at the bank, where people can slip papers and keys and small things underneath it. But Susan can control the door and see who's coming and going from her office.
So the other door would be unlocked, and then the inside door would be locked.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like the SAB 9 office.
Yeah.
And both doors can be locked if
Yeah,
she
yeah,
has,
yeah.
you know, an
Yeah.
electronic controller, so. On this side, with the addition, he proposed to take the small, older classroom in the front and turn that into principal's office and guidance office with a bathroom for the office suite. Adding a bump out here to the other older classroom to make it meet the square footage requirements that the state required. Replacing what is my office now with an elevator to get cleaning equipment up and down, or handicapped students, whatever. It would just be a way to get things up and down without using the stairs, and adding an additional staircase here for a second means of egress. We're not planning to use the basement for anything, but in the event that we needed expansion time or whatever.
Oh, so the elevator was for the basement, not for the top floor.
Correct.
Yes,
That's
yes,
it.
yes,
It's
yes,
like
we
the
can't
wrong side of the
use-
building.
we can't use the top floor. And then there's another exit outside to replace the one that is here now. Okay, kitchen, these two rooms stay the same, special services, speech and OT stays the same, library stays the same, these two big classrooms stay the same. Then we go out back for an additional classroom space to replace this one that we took away, this small one here, to have another regulation size classroom. And then the preschool wing was a separate piece. They can come and go, they have their own vestibule here with cubbies, their own office space, and their own bathroom.
But also accessible from the school.
Yes, yeah, there's a door here, you come around the hallway here, can access this classroom here, access the preschool here, but you don't need to access the school. Parents can come and drop off, and students can come and go without walking through any of the rest of the building.
Do they have a double foyer too? Do they have a foyer?
Yes.
What's the,
There won't be a person sitting there, though. The teacher would still have to control that.
Yeah, you probably, yeah.
The vestibule here, the idea is more of this is coat room and stuff.
Yeah.
As opposed to.
Drop off
From a
pick up
security
all the
standpoint.
neighborhoods,
Well,
it's kind of the main office type
you know
thing.
where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
You know, I lived on like,
So nothing would actually preclude us from building another
Vestibule.
vestibule out on that one, so that we could do that if we wanted to, but I think,
what's
Well, we're-
controlling access, that's my point. Because after, you know, Sandy Hook, every school in like where I was, you know, we added foyers, those doors to the outside were never left, you know, they were
And-
always locked.
and so one of the things that we need to determine is what, if anything, we're doing. And this is also kind of to show that we can do this in stages, we don't have to do it all at once, and that one of the
Right.
things I think that we've talked about scrapping first or putting to the side first was this whole preschool thing anyway.
Yeah.
What is this? Is that the stairwell?
This is the existing stairwell in the
There's
basement.
one, right, that goes down into the basement. And it used to go up to outside, now it kind of goes up to the hallway and then outside. But right now, it goes right out into the back of the building. This is the back of the building here. So this classroom doesn't really have to be added on, but that just means
We lose a classroom if you don't.
you've lost a classroom and you've lost a principal's office if you don't put it here in the guidance office.
So, yeah, so that's the only thing that can really scrap as far as what we've got planned here is the preschool, and how much does that save? It's kind of hard to say, but how much does any of this cost or save? It's really hard to say, but it was really had an engineer flushed out, although we do have some estimates for the cost of things, but the idea behind this was that, you know, these two classrooms right now are woefully undersized for modern classrooms. So this gave us a modern-sized classroom, small modern-sized classroom here, and then two other small modern-sized classrooms, so for three other. So we would have 4 classrooms that would be more up-to-date and more modern size. It gave us a little bit more office space by using those areas. And I thought that the room is super slim right now, did get expanded, I think, but somehow in that scenario, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think so, 156. I think those are exactly the same. The other thing is we now have just this and a film for the glass, because one of the things that the security people point out is that you can stop people from getting in here, but our windows aren't protected and go right into a classroom. So there was a film that prevents the glass from being broken. It's not bulletproof glass, but it makes it really hard to smash a window out.
But still being clear.
Yes, yeah,
And that's something they put over existing window, or that's a new window?
that's
Put
over
it
the
over
existing.
the existing.
And that's included in the grant that we just got for the security and the extra cameras. So that can happen anyway.
So the phase would be, if I'm thinking correctly, you would add, obviously the vestibule first, but then you would add the classroom in the back before you started doing the principal's office and stuff up front.
It's kind of tough to say there, and that's where phase-in would have to mostly be more from the standpoint of how long is this going to take, because how much can you do between June 30th and August 15th? Could you do everything? Probably not. But would you be able to do this work and this work? Maybe it would really.
Or you
depend.
do all that work, and you just use that for a classroom the first year, the preschool wing.
Yeah, that's something to
So we'd have to
consider,
have, like, flush it out, like,
too. Yeah, so
right.
bottom line is, if we wanted to do everything, it would have to probably be done over multiple years anyway. But as far as budgeting the entire thing is concerned, I think it would be kind of difficult to do that in a phase sense, meaning like, let's do $1.5 million and do this part one year, and then maybe another $1 million to do these parts another year. That I would recommend strongly, yes. I think that if this is something that we want to do, aside from the vestibule front, and that's I think a given that we should do that. We don't need to appropriate money for that, although we do need to budget money for that, right?
No, you
You
got
got a grant,
$80,000
$80,000
to-
grant.
So we don't even need to put that in the budget, really, it's just we can do that whenever we want to.
it's already in the account.
So we don't need to worry about that, other than, so that's gonna get done. As far as everything else is concerned, we've got estimates, and the estimates are here, and it's, the total estimates are at $2,627,000. That does include engineering costs, for doing engineering on this. But why it would be difficult to do this from the standpoint, well, let's do $1 million this year and $1.5 million another year, is you don't get anywhere with that, because this is gonna take probably $300,000 to $450,000 worth of engineering and design work. So although these are basic plans, they're not engineered, and we don't know how much it's gonna cost to do the electrical work, the plumbing work, the
Right,
heating.
site work and all that.
Site work and all that, that needs to be flushed out more to give you a more accurate number. This $2,627,000, it does reflect the cost of building in today's numbers. It does incorporate this engineering cost. It overinflates it by a small amount because you don't know what the engineering costs are gonna be. I mean, they could be $300,000, it could be $450,000 or something like this. And groundwork, particularly in Jackson, you don't know whether it's gonna be $400,000 worth of groundwork or $750,000 worth of groundwork. You just never know until you start actually seeing
Seems
the
like Jim got that quote for like 80 grand or something, and Jay did it for $1,100 or something.
Yeah, so, which, whenever you do something like this, you hope that those kind of things are gonna happen and occur, but you can't bank on that up front. You have to bank on the big number, meaning this is what the total project is gonna cost, and we can do everything inside of that number with strong probabilities. No guarantee, it never is, but, when we first looked at this building and we're doing this, we thought doing all of this was gonna cost $1 million. And, in talking with Mike and Jim, we're like, you know, let's stay on the safe side, assume it's gonna cost as much as 1.5 million, that way we know we can get the project done for that. And that's always the kind of target. You don't wanna short yourself, because then you're left with nickel and diming the building like we did this building when we lost $800,000 up front on this building. And you don't want to run into that kind of problem when you need to see the product complete A to Z. So that number is probably high, but it's realistic and safe. And that's something that we have to, you know, obviously bond. And the project will be done in phases. The money, the passing of the bond will probably be done in one fell swoop. So what we need to consider is that if we want to do anything that's incorporated into this project, we want to probably go for the whole $2.7 million up front.
So not do what we did last year and ask for 250.
No, that was, the idea behind that was kind of the seed money for the engineering
Right.
to be done. And kind of to see how the town felt about, you know, taking on a project that big, kind of plant that seed out and see where to go with it. And this year we're at a point where we need to decide to put this to the voters or not.
So we did the facilities meeting, so we're presenting next week, the 24th, to the select people, the findings from the community, so it was very interesting that the committee was very happy with the results that we got last week, so I'll go over it again in our meeting, but one of the things that came up in the top 5 category as ranking under the fire station was the school improvements. So as far as people wanting to have it done. So that's good that the town is
Chris, I was
putting
gonna
it
ask
out
you
there.
about the fire. Jay had asked me about that the other day. It sounds like they're gonna ask for the money from the fire department this year.
They have an overwhelming support from it, from the community, from the survey that we did. The thing is that our town plan, so here's where the crux comes in for me, is our town plan is outdated. They're gonna use the information that we have from the facilities that we just did this past year as the platform for going forward with the town plan to get it underway. So from a community perspective, it would be nice to have a town plan to say, as a community, we're gonna do the fire station in 1 year, then we're gonna move to the school in the next year, that type of, but we don't have that yet.
And that's the kind of thing that, so when you ask townspeople, what do you prefer, what's your priorities, it's like, well, it doesn't, I mean, we say, let's do the fire station 1 year and the school the next. All right, so 1 year we pass a $5.5 million bond, and the next year we pass a $2.7 million bond. If you put that question to the voters, the answer might be different. Because what difference does it make if you do it 1 year versus the next? 2 years later, the taxes are going up by about $350,000 a year in total. Is that something the town should consider? As far as, that's where to me, it's like, as far as what the facility committee is doing, and it's very important work, I think it's what, I don't factor in myself in determining whether we should do this project or not. To me, we shouldn't do this project this year because 2.7, so when I say about the numbers, we were looking at $1 million, $1.1 million building. Now we're looking at a $2.7 million building. Didn't change the building at all, it's just costs that have gone up. The other thing that's a problem, and it's also going to be a problem for the fire station, is availability of general contractors. It may be that we want to phase this in, we want to do this in phases, we pass a bond this year for it, and we get a bond for $2.7 million. We can't even start spending it until 2025. And that's fine, but that may be what we're looking at. It might not even be able to start the project until 2026, 2027.
And how long would the bond be?
It could be for whatever we sell to the town.
Yeah, I didn't know that was something you guys already discussed.
When I looked at the bond numbers, I looked at the bond numbers for a $1.5 million project on this, and it was going to put the taxes up by about $75,000 a year. And when you look at the cost between a 15-year bond or a 20-year bond, there's not a huge difference in interest that you save from going from a 15-year bond, from a 20-year bond down to a 15-year bond. You're not saving a lot in interest rates. The interest payments are still about the same. When you go from 20 to 30, it's still the same thing. So whether you do a 10, 15, 20, or 30-year bond, to me kind of incorporates how many years you want the taxpayers you're paying. What's the most fair thing to do for the taxpayers? Well, if you're building a building that's going to last 50 years, to me that's, if it's only going to cost you $300,000 more to do it for 10 years, or it's 30 years versus 20, it's more fair to the taxpayers as a whole to do 30 years. And so that's what we look at. Issue two is that when I looked at a $1.5 million bond, we were talking about 1.89% interest rates. Now they're going to be over 3 and 4. Well, for municipal bonds, they're a lot less like they are for like commercial or for private ones. I mean, I imagine we'll be looking at pretty significant things. So to me, there's just from the economy to our student population to what the town's doing as a whole. I just personally, I don't think this is the year to be going into the town and asking for a $2.7 million bond. And where we're at with this, to me, I think we're ready to do this. We're ready to go for a $2.7 million bond. We've got enough here we can talk about that we can try and sell that. And what it's going to come down to is who shows up that night. Is it the 30 parents that really want to do this, and then the 80 people who otherwise would come to say no, don't show up that night? We could probably sell this thing and make it work, but what's the smartest and the most thoughtful thing to do? To me, it's good to have these numbers. That $2.7 million isn't going to go up. It's if anything, it's going to go down. I would recommend that we put this part of it at least on hold for this year, and keep it in on our shelf, and it's there when we're ready to plug it in. Fire station's a tricky thing because what's the town going to go for there? It's really kind of up in the air, and the selectmen aren't being real decisive on it at the moment, other than the fact that they're probably going to sink another $30,000 in maintenance of the old building. And there's some good plans to take that building and expand it marginally, not change the footprint of the whole building that much, and have it become a much more usable building for around $1 million. So there's lots of options that the town has there as well. I'd be really surprised if the town puts anything to the voters as far as moving on the fire station this year. They're not there yet.
Well, the facilities came back, and what was nice is that before you do the fire station, which is, has more public access per se than the school, because nobody can be on the school, is some of the things that came back from the survey could potentially be incorporated into another design of the fire station. So while you're building the fire station, you might as well take into some of the things that came out of the survey and put it in to make the town even more resilient and last longer into the fire station that the community wants, so therefore they would be even more behind you, even though the costs might go up a little bit.
But those things are, they're years
yes.
and years in the plan. They're
Yes.
not. So that right now, there's available plans to move on the fire station across on 5.5. They really know what's talking about doing at this point in time. There's plans for about $1 million expansion of the fire station that people are talking about that we could go with any time. The town's ready to do it. Selectmen aren't ready to move on that this year. So they're not moving on anything on the fire station this year, other than routine maintenance on the building because the building needs it. And there's questions from the selectmen about what we're doing too, because we haven't decided. And I think tonight,
before, in the next 10 minutes, I think we should decide as a majority what we want to do. You know, I'm saying we should put this on the shelf for
I agree with that.
I like putting it on the shelf, and the reason I like it is, A, if we could work more with the town, right, as far as a town plan, if that's any for the future. And then B, I had to be, for a year, like, we can now go back to this and talk about this if we're gonna put it on for next year, and bring it up again to the community earlier in the year, in the budgeting cycle, have more public forum, we'll have a new principal, you know, all those things, maybe some new teachers, I don't know, whatever. But, we'll be able to educate and get more community involvement for over a longer period of time, so we don't get the surprise at the end. My other question is, I would probably like to go with the playground, which I know Gail has done, and I'm not sure, based on where I don't want it to interrupt the expansion.
Yeah, I
So
wonder how close that comes.
at one point in time, we were talking about, so I think that, so, at any rate, we've got consensus here, we're not gonna put this
Yeah.
on the warrant for this year, so we don't need to talk about that anymore, really. Other from the standpoint that we don't want it to interfere with the playground. From that aspect of things, I think that we've done a good job of that planning committee took into considerations the fact that we might be expanding the school grounds when we did that. And they have this footprint and can use it as a reference point. Say the school's going to expand someday, and it probably will, whether it's in our lifetime or not. And that's probably going to be the intelligent way to expand the current footprint of the building. So I think that the playground people designing it should take this and say, these areas are kind of not going to be usable for playground space, so consider that in the playground design, if possible, and see what happens.
I mean, it's not like we can't do some of the playground stuff when we get to that point, because your point is, it could be 5 years.
Right.
We could easily move
It
this
may be
one
never,
side for
I mean,
one.
it's-
I mean, but.
So I hate to say that, you can't put the playground right there, but it makes the most sense, because we might put a preschool there someday, and it's never gonna be there, so.
Right.
But,
And I think when we were talking about it, the most cost-effective way to do it is to put it right where it is, because we don't have to worry about conduits and pipes and things of that nature, so.
What regular it is would be in the way for the addition.
No, I don't think so.
That would have to be measured. I'm not 100% sure one way or the other. But Christina Campa, who is a parent, she's a landscape architect, and she's jumped on our playground committee. And what I don't have with me tonight is she has an aerial shot of our property and has marked it all out, but we didn't go forward with that because we're not sure whether it's going to go. So there's more work to do. This is just a quick schematic of, she was already talking to Kristen about play area 2, which is in our fenced-in area on the far side. It's our handicap accessible sensory area for the smaller children and/or special needs children who might not be able to benefit from the larger playground. So play area 1 would be about 3,000 square feet, and that's the current playground equipment area that is there. She broke it down into equipment, the installation, and site preparation. You can see how the equipment is broken down in a smaller area. It would be about $14,000, and the larger area about $24,000, and that's based on the estimates that are attached on the back. We considered the surface options. There are several different options, from rubber mats, which are quite expensive, to the loose wood fiber, which we've been using for years, and because it's a smaller sized playground, we think it's still probably the way we would end up going, unless somebody has a strong feeling the other way. We went on to a couple of playground structure sites, and priced, as attached to this, a couple of examples similar to what we have: a contained slide, climbing area, swings, and the first sample, it says where it is. I don't really recall right where it is, but ranged from $40,000 to $60,000 for that equipment. And the second one was about $20,000 to $40,000. It's a little less expensive, the swings are smaller. So that's where we got the numbers and our estimates on what the equipment would cost. And then we went with, she broke it down per, a friend of hers who's in the playground building said typically the budgets for playgrounds break out to 50% for equipment, 25% for installation, and about 15% for site prep.
So just so, I'm a little confused with the numbers. So if say we wanted sample one, I like it. Where's the cost for that on here? So they don't have
We
sample
don't,
one
we
here.
don't have a specific budget for this playground, other than the estimate they give you here is a range of between $40,000 and $60,000.
Okay,
These are
so,
just two samples that were close to what we currently have,
right,
and we looked at approximately what the cost was, and then we went into their individual, there's an area on each website that you can go in and pull the prices for individual pieces. Like this price is $27,000, and to add the swings is another $8,000, and to add the handicap swings another $3,000, and that's kind of how we added it up to do an estimate.
so the estimate would be 80,000 would include site work and a playground. Like, it would include equipment installation and site preparation.
Yes.
So 80,000 to get what we want, about, close to.
Right, that's our educated estimate based on comps.
And that includes the sensory one and the fence,
Right,
and the big one.
and this big one right up here.
Okay. I think,
And it's basically the same thing, it's a 4-section swing and one climbing apparatus with slides, some hand over hand things. The long-term vision is to, the rock area that we put sawdust over there. The
yeah,
kids play on there almost more than they play on the equipment, and so they enhance that area, and maybe put some more climbing, balance beams, things out at various stations around the property eventually.
has anybody asked about, like the Highland Center? Because it's all rocks, and it's some stuff put into it. You
Yeah.
know, it's more of,
That's where we got this idea out the back about using the rocks that came out of this Whitney hole
right,
and use them instead of burying them. We put them in a arrangement where the kids could climb on them and jump on them. And then we put in that wooden piece where we could have the, what do they call those, cookies? The trees that have been cut into cookies
Right.
and squares and stuff, and they can build with them. And right now they have, they're baking and doing a bakery thing, and they're selling us cupcakes and food. So that's what they're doing out here, they're cooking and preparing food and then coming to serve us teachers on duty what they prepared, so. Good.
so as far as moving forward to the meeting, because it is 6 o'clock,
Yeah.
do we want to propose putting this on this year's budget? 80,000 for a new playground?
I'd be in favor of that.
I am.
Close to it.
With the idea of,
This is
also
one
looking
thing we
to
would
keep some immediate ever fundraising for it, that would knock that number down over the course of the year if possible.
Student fundraising too, okay. All right, so we can move forward.
This is a draft article.
Okay.
If you want to know.
Alright, so 6 o'clock, we can call the meeting to order. Closing the work session, we have to do that. 11.
There are extra agendas and copies of the budget up front. Your stone line. When you get old like me, though, if you.
Oh, come on. You forget that you're like 10 days younger than me. 10 days.